I've read over 100 romance books this year, and I want to tell you which are the top 10 books that you really should try. Hi guys, welcome. If you're new here, hi, my name is Laura. If you're not, welcome back. I cannot believe I'm finally recording this. This is my last day of my week off, and it has been the only day that I finally have something to record. So thank you. I have 10 books here. One of them is a sapphic romance, 2 of them are heterosexual romances, and everyone else are gay romance books. The first book is Out on a Limb, is an heterosexual book, and it follows a girl and a guy who meet in this Halloween party, and they really like each other. They have one night stand and she becomes pregnant. They kind of decide to keep the baby, and she says that it's better if we stay as friends, because if we try to do something with this attraction we have and it fails, it could be potentially bad for the child because maybe we are angry at each other. So they decide to not act on their feelings, even though they're really feeling the attraction. I read this book just because a friend told me you are going to fall in love with this hero, and I did. The only problem is that I do feel like the pace was a bit off. They could have gotten together a bit earlier, and I really love slow burn, but it was a bit too slow sometimes. But if you really like this kind of really warm relationships, this has this ability rep in both the hero and the heroine. The hero has lost one of his limbs because of cancer. He doesn't have cancer anymore. And then the girl has a hand that is under development, and it's the same problem the author has. I think that's why this book really stands out, is because it's telling you a story that is fictional, but at the same time is talking about feelings that are not fictional, that are real, that someone, the author, has been dealing with. Top 9 is a gay romance thriller called Seven of Space. It's a series. The first book is Kill Game. With this one, I'm a bit sad. You know this series where you really love every single book, but you didn't love the ending? It's not that it was about ending, it's just that I saw it coming. But still, I will highly recommend this book if you want a relationship that is different. Characters have so many flaws and they're still trying to make it work. Both of them have their issues. Levi has anger issues, Dominic has a gambling disorder. So a lot of the times things are not working, not because they are not perfect for each other, but because of all the problems outside that, and also because they are in a really stressful situation because they have to catch this serial killer, and this serial killer is obsessed with Levi. In top 8, I have a book that is the complete opposite. Seven of Space has a lot of drama, a lot of plot. Less than this is super slow pace. Has a friends to lovers romance that starts with sex from the beginning, which I absolutely hate. You know what these books where you connect with the character and you're so invested with them that you don't care what they are doing, and in this case they basically realize in the first chapter, well, one of them already knew, but the other realized in the first chapter that he's attracted to his best friend and they have never been with a man before. So they realize they have to experience for the first time with this being with a man, and you follow them in this kind of journey, and it's extremely long big, and to be honest the plot wasn't that big, but it's so warm and cozy. The kind of book you're reading it and you feel the love they have for each other. It has so many warm details. I was reading it, I was just so in love with them. The smut was really good. Second best smut in this entire list. So if you want something that is soft, that is a slow pace, but it has a smut from the beginning, and it's a friends to lovers, a sports romance because they're in the same team, highly recommend this book. It just warms my heart just thinking about it. Top 7 is Those Who Wait. It's a sapphic romance and it has kind of the similar vibe and less to this, but in this case it's a slow pace and a slow burn. It's a really long book too, and it's between these two girls who met in an app. One of them is looking for a long-term relationship. She just gets feelings really easy, so she doesn't want to just have sex and that's it. Whereas the other, she's a really important politician and she's a female. She doesn't want to add being a lesbian to the whole mix because she's also very young. That means that she is only looking for something fast and quick, and that's it. The thing is that they really connect, so they decided to be friends instead, even though they are extremely attracted to each other. It feels so realistic. I remember I didn't have a lot of time while I was reading this book. I love it just going to bed and reading a bit of them on their daily lives, being super friends, being attracted to each other. So it was just so kind of angsty, but at the same time it was like really mundane. They just feel so real. I was reading it and I remember it wasn't really escapism for me because Charlotte was so frustrating. She always put her career first, but if I was her, I would do the exact same, so I couldn't really hate her without hating myself. If you're into that kind of angst, I would highly recommend this book. Both of them are really relatable. That's what I meant. That's why even though I didn't feel I loved this book as much when I was reading it, I finished it and I had this really warm feeling about them. I know them as if they were my oldest best friends, and if you want that kind of romance, highly recommend this book. And then for top 6, I have the complete opposite. I have a super spicy book. Some of you know which book is going to be already because you have talked to me about this book, and it's For the Fans. Another extremely long book. I'm sorry, I love long books. The thing with long books or with really long series is that if they don't drag out too much and they don't bore you, when you finish them, you feel like part of your heart, you leave it with them, and it's just so good at the same time, so bittersweet, and that's why I really love it. I just really love when you connect with something and you really love something, and that's easier with long books or just with series. And in this case, it's about two stepbrothers. It's not really taboo because they meet when they are 16, so they have never been raised as brothers or anything. Avi is like the cool brother. You're going to love him. He's a nerd, so relatable. He just has so much personality. He's like, I want to be myself. I don't want to be like everyone else. Whereas Kieran wants to be like everyone else. He's this popular kid, plays sports. He's straight. Is him. Kieran is such a spoiler brat. Is the kind of character I usually hate. I actually hated him, but I had a feeling we were going to have the best character arc, and we had it. If you have watched or read Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, Yan Chang is more or less like Kieran, but without the character development. For those who don't know who Yan Chang is, basically Kieran sees Evie and he's like, I hate his smile, I hate that he's kind, I hate that his looks just so stupid being happy, and he decided he's going to hate him forever. So yeah, that kind of character. I know some people actually liked him a lot from the beginning. I have this friend who actually read this book and he loved Kieran. He was like, oh Laura, but you see that he's suffering, he's kind of funny on hating Evie just because he's pretty. I was like, I respect that, but I don't agree. For me, it was really fun. The fact that Kieran kind of falls first and falls so hard, and you see this character, he's a spoiled brat, falling for the character you are in love with. It's so much fun. You're feeling like that's karma. It also has the best spice I've read this year. This is not a fan fiction book. I'm not going to enter into details, but it's really hot. I'm only going to mention the fact that in the first time they do something is a threesome. For me, it wasn't really important because I was focusing on them and not the girl. For me, the girl was nothing important. I didn't care about her at all. But some people didn't want to read about a girl on their gay romance books. So if that's something you really don't want to read, don't pick this up. But I don't think that the thing was important. It was just an excuse to put them together on the same bed, doing things and realizing, we actually have chemistry. Maybe we should do an OnlyFans, just the two of us. And that's what they do. For top 5, I have With Love from Cold War. This is another heterosexual romance. You're following Lauren and Asa, and they work in a thematic park that is having some problems. So the boss tells them that they should do a project. They can do it individually or together. Kind of came up with ideas to get more clients. The thing is that Asa and Lauren doesn't really get along because, well, Lauren is kind of a bit of a robot sometimes. Everything has to be done a third-hand way. That makes her not have a lot of friends. She doesn't really want to have friends. She doesn't really interact with people. She just lives by herself all the time because she doesn't want to open her heart and be hurt. But at the same time, she's kind of miserable being alone. Whereas Asa is kind of super warm, sunshine. You kind of have like the sunshine, grumpy kind of trope. It's kind of that, but she is the grumpy one, which I absolutely adore. I just hate the sunshine grumpy trope, so this kind is better, especially because Lauren is not really grumpy. She's just like shy and cold, which is a bit different from being grumpy. She's not rude. And also, another book I read just because this friend told me you are going to have the biggest crush on him, and she was so right. Get yourself a friend who reads romance and knows you really, really well and recommends you the love interests they know are going to make you fall to your knees. Those are the best kind of friends. So Asa is a hero. He's bisexual, which actually was a representation I was really interested in because I felt like we don't really have bisexual or just queer representation in general in heterosexual romances, especially in the hero. It's even more difficult to find a bisexual hero than a bisexual heroine. In this case, I really love that he's sexy not because of how he looks, but because of how he acts. I'm so tired of these heroes whose whole personality is being told I have a six-pack. You know, people who just by the gestures and the way they talk, they are sexy. That's what I want you to sell me. The fact that they are not only sexy because of how they look, but because of how they act. And she did it so well here. I was so over the moon about this guy. Just read it. Like, just read it. In the top 4, actually I'm cheating because I put 2 books. But they're in the same series by the same author, so I just couldn't choose. I'm so sorry. It's Until You and Then You. The best part about these books is the fact that they have the emotion, but they also have the comedy aspect. I recommended it to a friend and she cried her eyes out reading the first one, and she told me, I can only read 1 book of this every 10 books. You know, you read 9 books that are funny and sexy and just really warm, but not really unforgettable, and then you read one of those that destroys your life, that steals part of your heart, and you're like, damn, I felt that. This is a real romance. I loved it, but at the same time, I cannot survive having all of these kind of romances because of how much it impacted me. But at the same time, it's not dramatic in an over-the-top way, because I absolutely hate soap operas. You know, when you're reading books and you feel like the author is only trying to make you cry, and that's the whole point of the story. No, Bria Prescott, if you don't know her, she wrote Project Hero, which is one of my favorite comedy books. It's not comedy, but it has so much comedy. And with this series, I think so many people are loving it so much because it not only has the emotion, the characters, and the fun that goes with her books, it also has some depth on them, and also because they have suspense. In the first book, you're following Jude and Blake. They don't do relationships, neither of them, but they meet and they really like each other, so they start meeting again and meeting again. At some point they're like, we are dating, but they don't really do that, and both of them have their secrets that at the beginning you don't really know them. I figured out one of them, but I didn't figure out the second one. It was such a shock. They know that if the other person discovers that, at least Blake's secret, maybe the relationship is not there anymore. So it's like, I cannot really lie to them, but at the same time I'm afraid to not lie to them and destroy what we have. So it's kind of angsty because of that, and the suspense is just so good, guys. I highly recommend it. And in the second book, you have another couple. You can actually start with the second book, but I think they are both really good, so I would recommend to just go in order because they have similar vibes. In top 3, I have the Adrian English Mysteries. This is the complete opposite of Seven of Space, because for me, Seven of Space started really high and then went a bit low, whereas Adrian English Mysteries started high and only went higher and it stole my complete heart. You're following Adrian English, who is extremely funny. You know, this kind of storytellings that you don't care if the mystery is good, if there is romance, you just love the way a book is written so much that you will keep reading it just because of that. But on top of that, you have a good mystery, and on top of that, on the first book, you meet the love interest, so you're like, I kind of want to see more of this. The reason why I didn't really love the first books is because the love interest, Jake, he's homophobic. And I hate homophobic characters because there's just so much pain. You're following them and you see how they're hurting the person you love, that is Adrian. Adrian was my baby. And he was hurting him because of some commentaries he say, but also he was kind of hurting himself more because he didn't love himself. He hated that he was gay. So it was extremely angsty, and it was the kind of angst I really don't like to read because it's just like, I wanted Adrian to be happy. I kind of hated that Jake really treated him really well, and Jake was the kind of boyfriend that Adrian needed, but then he said that kind of commentary and was like, of course, at some point, Jake is going to realize that he cannot be happy being a straight guy and having a girlfriend and having a family because he's not straight. The love of his life is not a woman. It was so wonderful when you finally see that character development, guys. I swear to you, I read book 4, 5, and 6, and then I reread them. It has become something extremely special for me. So if you don't mind the angst, or if you love the angst, highly recommend this series. Of course, you have to like suspense because it's a thriller gay romance series, and in the first book you don't have romance at all, but if you like both genres, highly recommend this series. You're going to suffer, you're going to hate me, you're going to hate Jake, but trust me, you're going to love the last week so much. It's going to be so worth it. I'm going to cheat again and say I have 2 top ones because I really cannot choose between these 2 weeks. One of them is a series. You're going to know which series it's going to be because I still haven't talked about these babies here. And then the other one is going to be my favorite standalone gay romance ever, and it's the CM Alum. I have such a hard time talking about this book because I feel when you love something as much as I love this book, nothing I'm going to say is going to make it justice. You're going to follow Danny Sidney, is his name, deal with it, and James. They're both surfers and they meet in a championship in California because Sydney is from Hawaii, and they collide. That's how I need to explain it, because especially Sydney has such a hard personality. He's the kind of person, he doesn't have a filter, he's going to tell you exactly what he thinks of you. What I loved is that he told James what James needed to hear, whereas James, he's not out. He has this huge crush on Danny when he sees him, and he tries to just be friendly with him, and then he just snaps, and it's wonderful, guys. I swear it's the best first talk ever. I loved it. So they decided to kind of train together because James wants to go professional and Danny is the best surfer in the entire world. So they decided to train this kind of a week that Danny is going to be in California, and they're going to become friends. What I really love about this book is the fact that I feel I'm reading a memoir. Like, if the author tells me that's my love story, I will be like, that makes so much sense, because you're reading a book and the POV just feels so real, guys. Like, both POVs are so different. The way they think, the way they talk, it's so unique, it's so personal. If you want to read a hidden gem from this channel, please let this be your book. And finally, my other top one, it's going to be, of course, Erra or the Husky and His Wife Kashisim. I have here only book 3 and 4 because I have the other ones in Santiago. Erra was the shock of this year. The thing with Erra is that if you know me, it's not a book you could recommend. I'm going to tell you what this book is about and you're going to be like, Laura, you're nuts. And I'm going to be like, is escapism in its pure form, because it's so over the top that you don't take it seriously, so you can just have fun with it. But read the trigger warnings, please. Just read them. I don't want to be responsible for traumatizing you. Trigger warning for someone killing themselves. In the very first chapter of Erra book 1, you're following a villain. He basically want to have revenge because the person he was in love with died, and he thinks he died because of his Shizun, which means master or teacher in Chinese. So his Shizun is Chu Guanin, who is actually the love interest, but he is oblivious about the fact that he's actually into Chu Guanin and not this person who died. So he decided to just torture him. He rapes him. It's absolutely horrible. Like, Moran is a villain, and that's the character you're going to be following. So in the first chapter, after Chu Guanin dies, Moran decided to take some poison and he dies. The thing is that he goes back in time. Not really back in time, because the things are not exactly the same as they were. He goes back to his 16-year-old self, and he slowly realized that Chu Guanin, his Shizun, the one he tortured in his past life, wasn't the person he thought he was. He was thinking that he didn't have any kind of feelings, that he was a robot, that he was super cold, but Chu Guanin is the complete opposite. He is really proud, so he's not able to admit that he's scared, that he loves someone, that he really truly cares about people, but in the inside he's the best person ever. He will die for absolutely every one of his disciplines. He loves them. He's always trying to protect absolutely everyone, even though nobody is able to detect that. So Moran, that now is 30 years old, even though he's on his 16-year-old body, he starts to wonder, did I had it grown the last time? Did I torture the grown people? Fantasy-wise, the plot is so heavy. It has so many things going on. The action, it's all the time there, and also has a lot of comedy because the humor is... So if you want something that is pure escapism, if you are ready to just stop thinking about the limits in real life and what will be okay in a contemporary romance, fall in love with characters and suffer with them, highly recommend The Husky and His White Gachison. This is book 4. Book 1 is this one. I'm just so damn grateful for all of you who were like, yes, try Evra, because I really loved it. So thank you so much. Please let me know in the comments which was your favorite romance books or your favorite books this year so far. I would love to hear that. Thank you so much for watching. Happy New Year. I think it's going to be already 2024 by the time I finish editing this, but Happy New Year nevertheless. If you got some new recommendations and you liked this video, give a like, show some love, subscribe, and I'll see you soon in another video.